Chapter 499 to 500. Boom, 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 boom. The roaring and rumbling sounds continued to pass through the thick layers of earth, and continued to be heard at the refugee center, which is located tens of meters deep underground. In the continuous waves of tremors traveling through the ground, dust would arise and enter everyone's nasal cavity, causing the children to sneeze occasionally. The rows of light bulbs at the refugee center would also flicker, making people feel afraid and distraught. At this time, another group of people entered the evacuation shelter under the leadership of an elderly man from the Hyuga clan. From his clean forehead, it wasn't difficult to judge that he is a member of the distinguished main family of the Hyuga clan. And following behind him are the children, weak women, the disabled, and the elderly of the Hyuga clan who needs to take refuge. Among these people, there is also a middle-aged man who is disabled and is sitting in a wheelchair. But unlike the other people taking refuge at the evacuation shelter, his face is not panicked or worried. Instead, he is completely calm, as if whatever that is happening outside has nothing to do with him. With the arrival of the members of the Hyuga clan, the evacuation shelter became more crowded, so the members of the Hyuga clan had to separate themselves to find a place to sit or stand. Upon seeing this, Teruho, who has entered the evacuation shelter quite earlier, quickly stood up and gave up his seat to Hinata. "Hinata-sama, please come here, there is space available here." Because of Kuroto, Cheyenne is very close to the members of the Hyuga clan, especially to Hinata since both she and Hinata are taught by Yui. Not to mention, both of their mothers are deceased, so they also understand each other and regard each other as best friends. As such, Teruho, who is Cheyenne's attendant, is also very respectful towards Hinata. Hinata, who had tightly held her little sister Hanabi's little hand with her left hand, hastily waved her free hand towards Teruho and said, No. Teruho-san, please sit. I am fine here. Hinata-sama, not only are you Cheyenne-sama's friend, but also the princess of the Hyuga clan. How can I let you just stand there? So, please sit," insisted Teruho. Even Hyuga Natsu, Hanabi's caretaker, standing behind Hinata and Hanabi said, "Please, Hinata-sama." With Teruho and Natsu's insistence, Hinata finally nodded and took Teruho's seat next to Cheyenne. And of course, Hanabi sat on Hinata's lap. After sitting down, Hinata looked at Cheyenne sitting next to her. And upon noticing that Cheyenne's entire body was shivering, she immediately asked in worry, "Cheyenne-chan, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" However, before Cheyenne could answer Hinata, Naruto, who happened to be seated on the opposite side, said quickly, "Rather than injured or ill, I think she is scared of something." Sasuke, who was huddled with Naruto, also looked at the shivering appearance of Cheyenne and lightly hummed in a cold tone. "She is shivering in fright even when we are at the evacuation shelter? Such a scaredy cat. Head chop." As soon as Sasuke said so, Sasuke's mother, Uchiha Makoto, who had Uchiha Kiyomi sitting on her lap, knocked on his head. "It's rude to speak to others in such a manner." Sasuke was slumped and had a bump on the top of his head. Seeing Sasuke slumped, Naruto immediately covered his mouth and snickered. Sasuke, on the other hand, was quiet and whispered slightly, "Humph, the bad guys are too cunning. They only dared to attack the village when Inen and Shusanai has gone out to train. If Inen and Shusanai were in the village currently, then the bad guys would have been defeated already." Mikoto just shook her head slightly and said nothing. If it is said that she is not worried about Itachi, then she would be lying, but at this point, when the village is under such an attack, she can only choose to trust that Itachi and Shursui will be fine. On the other hand, after listening to Naruto, Hinata quickly turned towards Cheyenne and asked with a worried expression, "What happened, Cheyenne-chan?" Cheyenne raised her head and wanted to confide to Hinata about the terrifying scenes she had seen in a prophecy not long ago. But upon remembering Kuroto-chan's previous instructions, she just shook her head slightly and endured it. At the same time, she silently prayed in her heart that Kuroto-chan prevents that from happening. Noting Cheyenne's silence, Hinata was at a loss, but she consciously did what her Okasan used to do with her in a similar situation. Hinata reached out her free hand and held Cheyenne's hand and said with a slight smile, "It will be all right, Cheyenne-chan." Cheyenne said nothing but nodded slightly. The mature ones on the side smiled slightly when they saw Hinata's actions, and Uchiha Makoto can't help but remember the women named Uzumaki Kushina and Hyuga Himeji as she saw the naughty Naruto and the kind Hinata. Inside the underground base where the Gakage conference took place. In an underground hall, 5 people are sitting around a round wooden conference table. These 5 people are none other than the Sandame Tachikajinoki of Awagakure, Yandame Reikijai of Kimogakure, Yandame Mizukage Karatachi Yagura of Kirigakure, Godame Kazakage Pakura of Sunagakure, and Elder Mitokado Hamura of Kanahagakure. Behind each of the Kage stood their respective guards and subordinates, counting the 4 Kage, 1 elder, and many subordinates. The number of people in this hall is quite a lot. Despite this, the hall is extremely quiet at this moment. No one is talking, and there is only a faint rumbling sound being heard due to the battle taking place in Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen was very shrewd. Only after all 5 Kage had gathered in Konoha did he reveal his true purpose. Although everyone realized that they are being used by Sarutobi Hiruzen, no matter which Kage. They can't help but admit that this is indeed a very good opportunity to deal with Akatsuki. So after a brief discussion, all 4 Kage agreed to the request Hokage. And since everyone reached a consensus, so a plan was formulated. The plan is simple. While the main force of Konoha keeps the entire Akatsuki organization in check, the Gakage will strike the leader of the Akatsuki organization by a surprise attack, killing him in the resulting process at the same time, destroying his rinnegan to completely solve the Akatsuki organization once and for all. And all 4 Kage agreed to this plan because it really is a good plan. It's just that nobody expected the situation to get out of hand at the start. Even the first monster released by Akatsuki as temptation isn't solved yet. After a long time, listening to the roars and sounds that showed no signs of stopping, the Yonde Mizukage couldn't help but question the Konoha elder Midokado. Has Konoha not yet found a way to restrain that monster? The Sandame Tsuchikage spoke as if an elder mocking the young generation. The young and vigorous still can't hold his breath. As far as Inoki is concerned, it is not his village being ravaged by a monster, so he is not in any hurry or worried. In his opinion, this is a God-gifted opportunity to not only deal with the Akatsuki organization, but also deplete Konoha's vitality. Karatachi Yagura is naturally not worried about Konoha. He is rather worried about the Fujin. After all, not long ago the people in this hall received the report that a member of Amatsukami is fighting against the monster that came out of the box of Ultimate Bliss. And as a secret member of Amatsukami, he does care about life and death of the members of Amatsukami. Reikage, I also couldn't help it any longer and asked Elder Midokado, does Konoha have any secret agreement with Amatsukami that we are not aware of? Elder Midokado shook his head. None. The grumpy Reikage immediately asked again. Then why would Amatsukami help Konoha? The cunning Tsuchikage also intervened. Yes, Konoha must give us a reasonable explanation for this matter. Elder Midokado replied, Amatsukami's appearance was simply not in our plan, so we are also surprised by the intervention of Amatsukami. For now, we can only assume that either Amatsukami intervened because of their enmity with the Akatsuki organization, or because of their interest in the monster that came out of the box of Ultimate Bliss. Reikage seems to want to say something, but Godame Kazakage Pakura tapped her finger on the wooden table to attract others to herself and said lightly, Don't quarrel anymore. If we fail this battle, then the 5 great shinobi villages will become history. So these disputes and questioning should be put on a hold until after the war. The Reikage snorted heavily and said nothing more. The others also tacitly became silent. The battle on the ground continues. Konoha, who was unable to cause damage to Satori, could only choose to passively defend against it and retract its defense line backward. Therefore, more and more blocks were destroyed, and the area affected by Satori, Fujin, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Gamabunta's movements became larger and larger, and gradually spread to the center of the village. After attacking again to no avail, Jiraiya with heavy breath loudly asked Fujin, who was floating in midair, Hey, do you have any ideas on how we can deal with Satori? To Jiraiya, the Amatsukami organization is also weird and unpredictable. Most of all, this organization has always been a mystery to all. It's hard to tell whether the members of Amatsukami are enemies or not, but as a temporary teammate who has been fighting against Satori for a while now, Jiraiya, for some inexplicable reason, feels that this member of Amatsukami is very reliable. Tsunade also looked at Fujin with an expectant gaze, because she could see that from the beginning, Fujin hasn't made any active attack against Satori except for the first time, and after that, Fujin only passively defended against Satori. It's as if he is delaying something. Initially, she felt that Fujin was buying time for the civilians to evacuate, but as the fight continued, she felt that was not the case. Although he felt Jiraiya and Tsunade's gaze, Fujin said nothing, just looking towards the far sky. At this moment, a mass of iron sand was coming here from the distance and soon approached Tsunade. The vigilant Tsunade did not attack immediately because what came was iron sand, which means it was sent by this member of Amatsukami. After landing in front of Tsunade, the iron sand dispersed and revealed the unconscious and injured figure of Mui. Tsunade was confused looking at the man and soon realized that this man is a Kusugakure shinobi, more specifically, the master of Hozuki Castle. While Tsunade was confused, the iron sand that dispersed previously turned into the appearance of Fujin and hurriedly ordered the confused Tsunade, Hurry up Tsunade Heim, heal him. This dying man is currently the only key at our disposal in solving Satori. Tsunade crouched down and observed Mui's state. She could see that he is very close to death, and suspiciously questioned Fujin's iron sand clone. How is he the key to solving Satori? Just as Fujin's iron sand clone was about to answer Tsunade's doubt, Satori, who was hovering in the air, sensed Mui's breath, and realized that he is not yet dead instantly. He dived towards Mui and Tsunade with the objective of killing Mui. Noting Satori's intentions, Fujin's main body descended from the sky, and immediately after dispersing the iron sand clone, he waved his hand. Instantly, under Fujin's control, iron sand from everywhere gathered together and formed a small iron sand dome protecting Mui and Tsunade inside it, while the two will be unable to put up any fight. Mui because he is unconscious and dying, and Tsunade because while saving Mui's life, she won't be able to focus on other things. With that done, Fujin, who had descended down not long ago, unfolded a pair of huge iron sand wings, giving him an elusive appearance, and said in a cold tone, "That's as far as you go." Ding 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 ding. After easily blocking a rain of sharp feathers shot by Satori, Fujin smirked as he looked at the hysteric monster in the sky, who was getting more and more impatient as time passed. Although it is true that Fujin is unable to injure Satori because of Satori's special abilities, in the same way, Satori is also unable to do anything to Fujin because of Fujin's Byakugan and iron sand flowing all around. With black iron sand floating all around Fujin, so no matter what kind of attack Satori tried to use on Fujin, neither was able to injure Fujin nor is he able to get close to Tsunade or Mui, who are present under the dome of iron sand. So all Satori and Fujin are doing is consuming each other's chakra, and Fujin is naturally not too worried about chakra consumption. After all, his chakra reserves are also as high as that of a Bijou. And now that Mui is being healed by Tsunade, so it is only a matter of time before the issue of Satori is resolved. And perhaps Satori also realizes this, therefore, he is getting more and more impatient and hysterically shouted in anger. "Damn it, you pest! Get the hell out of there!" Fujin smirked. "Scared, are we? Whoa, 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 whoa." Hearing Fujin's words, Satori suddenly stopped and roared loudly. Following Satori's roar, there was a resonance echo from the box of ultimate bliss in the distance, and accompanied by evil black and cold winds, a terribly painful cry echoed all over the village. At the same time, a suffocating vile chakra, substantial to the eyes, spread all over the village. This substantial evil chakra was like evil tentacles spreading to the surroundings, constantly expanding and engulfing everything coming in its path, and covering the entire village in its clutches. When these tentacles made of a substantial black chakra touched the injured villagers and the corpses of the dead villagers, the villagers and the corpses immediately turned red and madly started to attack all the living creatures around them. Suddenly, the village that was already in chaos became more terrible. And this time, the range of chaos spread throughout the Konoha. The edge of Konoha, Uchiha clan district. Uchiha Fugaku folded his arms over his chest, quietly stood on top of the roof of the Konoha military police force, and observed the fight going on in the distance. Around him were other elite members of the Konoha military police force, fully armed and ready for battle at a single command, but currently, they too were silently observing the battle in the distance. At the same time, the other members of the Konoha military police force were aiding villagers in the process of evacuation. Whoosh 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 whoosh. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Fugaku and reported, "Patriarch Hokage-sama ordered us to continue to stay vigilant and guard against the attacks from the Akatsuki organization." Fugaku nodded silently. There was no change in his expression. Although Satori is raging in the village, Konoha's manpower is not too affected by him, because the village was already prepared for Akatsuki's revenge. Most of the genin and chunin are responsible for helping out the villagers in the evacuation, while the rest, including Tokubetsu Jonin and Jonin, are responsible for responding to Akatsuki organization's offensive. Therefore, the elite Umbu under Hokage, the elites of the Konoha military police force, and the elites of other major shinobi clans did not hastily join the battle against Satori. Instead, they were distributed around various key areas of the village guarding against Akatsuki's follow-up offensive. Looking at Satori, who was flying in the distance, Fugaku sighed. "Akatsuki's temptation attacks are so tricky, I don't know what will happen next." Just as Fugaku was a little worried, suddenly a commotion that had yet to reach this area also spread over. A large group of villagers with red eyes rushed towards the Uchiha clan district and started to madly attack everything living creature in sight. Fugaku observed the crazy villagers with his 3 Tomo Sharingan, then instructed his subordinates, "Kaminari, lead your team and eliminate these zombies. They must not be allowed to get into the Uchiha clan district." "Yes, sir!" The Jonin named Uchiha Kaminari nodded and instantly disappeared along with his team. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Instantly, the Uchiha shinobi in Uchiha Kaminari's team started to face the zombies and eliminate them one by one. Hyuga clan district. Bang 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 bang. With a series of palm strikes, one after another zombie villagers that were controlled by the box of ultimate bliss lifelessly fell to the ground. Hyuga Hayashi let out a sigh of relief and put down the gentle fist stance and immediately looked around. He could see that his clansmen were continuously eliminating these zombies that kept on coming with no end in sight. Because the Hyuga clan district is closer to the center of the village compared to the Uchiha clan district, therefore, the impact here is earlier and greater. However, under the joint offensive of the elites of the Hyuga clan, the crazy zombie villagers who rushed to the Hyuga clan district were being dealt with ease. Although their numbers still didn't stop coming, and within minutes the long streets of the Hyuga clan districts were filled with the corpses of the zombie villagers. Sighing slightly, Hayashi looked in the direction of his younger brother Hizashi and Hyuga Fumihiro, who walked over at this time. Hizashi said, "The brains of these villagers have been completely destroyed and there is no rescue. It is as if they have become zombies." Hayashi nodded lightly. He also has Byakugan, so naturally, he has also discovered this a long time ago. Hizashi then looked in the direction of Satori in the distant sky and questioned, "Has there been no new order from Hokage-sama yet? Is there really no need to support the battlefield over there?" Fumihiro said, "Not long ago, Kuroto-kun sent a shadow clone and asked me to inform the Patriarch that nobody should get close to that monster." Hayashi nodded, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama, and that member of Amatsukami is already fighting against that monster. Any more will not help much, but only add chaos. Besides, from what I can see, it's not a monster that can be resolved by using the advantage of numbers. So, we should stay here and guard against Akatsuki Organization's follow-up offensive. Hizashi nodded, and he too looked in the direction of Satori. On the main road leading to the Hokage building, Team Row under Hyuga Kuroto/Watatsumi's Shadow Clone's command was stationed here, and was the first one to be hit by these crazy zombies. As soon as she noticed hundreds of zombies approaching, Kurenai/Akame immediately weaved hand signs and said softly, "Genjutsu, flower petal escape." As soon as Akame activated her genjutsu, in the vision of zombies, countless petals fell from the sky, and the villagers who were initially caught in a frenzy were suddenly at a loss, and one by one their aggressiveness subsided and they all stood still. Next, Watatsumi commanded, "Eliminate them all. Not even a single one should survive." The Hate/Rabbit was shocked. "Captain, they are all ordinary civilians, not the enemies." Watatsumi shook his head. An evil chakra the same as that monster is flowing inside these villagers, and it has destroyed a major part of their brains. So they are all beyond help, not to mention, many of them were originally corpses. So they have to be eliminated as soon as possible. One more thing, be careful and make sure to not let these villagers bite you or dig their nails inside you. The zombies are using these means to further propagate this evil chakra into others, corrupting them and turning them into zombies too. So if this evil chakra gets inside you, then you all will also fall into the same situation as them. Now hurry up. With Watatsumi's explanation, nobody hesitated anymore and immediately drew out their umbu swords to eliminate these zombie villagers corrupted by the box of ultimate bliss. After dealing with a few zombies, Akame released the genjutsu and absent-mindedly looked into the distance, more specifically at the battle going on in the distance. She has also received the news that Futen was fiercely fighting against the monster who has ravaged the village. Although Kurenai is worried about him, with her meager strength all she can do is trust in his abilities and hope that nothing will happen to him, and he will remain safe. At the same time, there is also a bit of happiness and warmth in her heart when she learned that Fujin is fighting to protect the village, and Kurenai can't help but think, he may have left the village due to some personal reasons, but right now Futen is fighting to protect the village despite the risks. It means he still deeply cares about the village. So he is not just some lowly criminal. Back to the battlefield. Seeing that Satori became more and more hysterical, Fujin became happier and happier. This desperation of Satori clearly indicates that Fujin's approach was right. Jiraiya, who was not far away, also noted the change in Satori. Realizing this strangeness and its implication, he immediately jumped on top of the iron sand dome with the intention of stopping Satori should he manage to get past Fujin. Currently, Jiraiya is in Sennin mode, and his situation is quite similar to Fujin. Although he is unable to injure Satori in the same way, he is not afraid of Satori. Of course, Jiraiya is still a little worried, and he looked around the village with a distracted expression. Noting Jiraiya's worried expression, Toad Fukasaku, standing on his right shoulder, said, "Jiraiya-chan, don't get distracted. Don't forget that this is Konoha. The villagers corrupted by the evil chakra of the box of ultimate bliss may have been strengthened to the level of a chunin, but they won't be able to cause much harm." Toad Shima, standing on Jiraiya's left shoulder, nodded. "Yes, I can sense that the number of villagers corrupted by the evil chakra of the box of ultimate bliss is rapidly decreasing. This means that other Konoha shinobi are doing their work, so don't worry too much about these things. Just focus on what is in front of you. As long as Satori is killed or sealed back inside the box of ultimate bliss, the corrupted villagers would all lose their chakra support and die on the spot." Jiraiya nodded and focused all his attention on Satori's body. The two sides have been entangled for so long, so he already understands Satori's strength. Leaving aside the special ability to sense fear and bloodlust, Satori's personal combat effectiveness is also at the level of a Bijou. Although not as exaggerated as Kyubi or Hachibi, it still ranks at least at the level of the Gobi, or perhaps Rokubi. So, his combat effectiveness is not that difficult if three people like Jiraiya, Tsunade, and the member of Amatsukami are combined together. The main reason why Satori is so difficult to deal with is that his ability to sense fear and bloodlust is too incomprehensible. Additionally, he can also fly and is quite nimble and agile contrary to its massive size, coupled with the fact that it can shoot extremely sharp feathers and chakra spheres. So it indeed becomes a force to be reckoned with. Therefore, Fujin now understands that the legend of the box of ultimate bliss, being the ultimate weapon, is very likely to be true. Because as long as someone doesn't know the method to restrain Satori, it is almost invincible. But of course, that won't happen today, as Fujin has already found the method of dealing with Satori, and is waiting for Tsunade to completely heal Mui. Fujin didn't have to wait too long, and he soon heard Tsunade's voice coming from inside the iron sand dome. All right, he is healed. So fast. As expected of Tsunade, the best medical nin. After praising Tsunade a little, Fujin immediately removed the iron sand dome protecting Tsunade and Mui. As the iron sand of the dome dispersed, Tsunade and Mui's figure came into view. At this time, Mui's young face was extremely withered and hopeless. His expression was depressed, and his eyes had lost the light. This man was no longer an elite jonin, but a guilty father who has truly lost his son. In this regard, Fujin can also somewhat understand Mui's current psychological state. He sacrificed his own son for the dream he has been pursuing his entire life, only to find that the dream was nothing more than a scam. The box of ultimate bliss neither helped in the revival of the Kuzugakure to its former glory, nor did it fulfill Mui's wish of seeing his son again. Anyone who will face this kind of situation would be distraught, but Fujin can't care about Mui's psychological state right now, and must give Mui a reason to fight Satori. So folding back his iron sand wings, he landed next to Mui and Tsunade and said lightly, "Hey, don't you want to give your son the relief he deserves?"